Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Buddy Armstrong, bassist of the band Stigmata and owner of Unbeaten Records. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated Crew? On this episode, I'm joined by Buddy from the band Stigmata, also from Unbeaten Records. Buddy, how are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Very cool. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you agreeing to take time out of your, I know is a busy schedule, to chill and work through some fucking technical difficulties.
It's okay, man. Always got time to chill.
I know
we're here.
Yes, we're in the middle of it. We'll
yes, sir.
We'll take a chill time. So I know it's in the evening. Are you a coffee drinker?
You know, I have it in the morning.
Okay,
but I'm not really nutty about what kind of coffee I drink. I mean, boring as hell. I usually go to the two staples if I'm going to drink any coffee. But as far as home, like we got the Keurig machine at home, and I probably have never used it. I know you guys are big on your beans and your coffee.
Oh yeah, we're especially. In Montreal, we got a lot of great coffee to choose from. And you know, the whole French influence doesn't help that.
Oh
yeah. But,
yeah, we're the generation that grew up, you know, on Coca-Cola. Nothing, you know what I mean? In front of the TV, watching cartoons, drinking Coca-Cola.
It's so funny. My dad calls Coca-Cola because like my whole family's from Georgia, and he calls it Coca-Cola.
Oh, what's that?
He calls
how come?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought there was something behind it.
No, like
I don't know. I've never heard it called that.
Because Coca-Cola is like from Georgia. I think it was started.
Oh no shit!
It was started like in Atlanta or something like that, I think.
But maybe that's some old school hop drinking knowledge that we don't know about.
Maybe so. I've asked him about it before, and he cannot explain it to me.
No.
So
you had to be there.
It's like a colloquial kind of. I don't know.
Yep. Like that and boiled peanuts, right?
Oh, don't even get me started on boiled peanuts.
Everybody, it's bowl peanuts though, not boil.
Exactly. I had to. Sorry, I'm Montrealized in my my speech now, but yeah, it's bowl peanuts.
Yeah. That's funny.
I remember growing up, we had a guy with a stand because you can only buy boiled peanuts at a stand on the side of the street, and there's a guy down the street in my neighborhood that had amazing peanuts for like. I think it was, you'd get like a pound of them for $3 or something like that.
Jeez. Yeah, I work with somebody from like South Carolina, and he talks about how his granddad would sell them at the end of the driveway.
I mean, that's exactly what this was.
Yeah. It's like wet, hot peanuts or something, right?
Yeah, it's quite literally boiled peanuts, like peanuts that are boiled in a big pot. With like seasoning, so you can get like Cajun or you can get salted. You can get all kinds of shit. But like, I remember my papa or my grandfather, he would always be asking for boiled peanuts, especially later in life when his like his memory and stuff was starting to go. He's always crying for boiled peanuts. We're like, Papa, it's too much sodium. You can't have it.
Can't have it. That sucks. But that's a nice memory. Right?
Oh yeah, it's all. We'd have them in the car on road trips and stuff like that.
Oh hell yeah, that's what's up. Cool. My son lived in Georgia for a little while, and he came home and he talked about the boiled peanuts, and I had no idea what he was talking about. So I'm gonna have to try him. I'm gonna have to try him sometime.
We'll have to get you down to Savannah so you can try the real boiled peanuts.
All right. I don't want to get no fake boiled peanuts. I gotta get the real shit.
You gotta be careful.
Yep.
These counterfeit boiled peanuts.
Boiled peanuts. Funny.
Because I'm committed to the bit, I have to have coffee, and
yeah.
So I'll tell you what I'm drinking. Because it is, for those listening, we're recording this at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. I have a coffee that my friend gave me when Bruiserweight was playing in Ontario, called Eco Coffee, and it's the Spotted Frog blend, which is a espresso blend, I guess. It's pretty dark, pretty oily, but I made just so that we could have fun. I made a kind of like an espresso Negroni, like a cocktail.
Okay.
So it's got alcohol.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language. No, I'm just kidding. That's funny, man. I wish. I know you love the coffee, and I wish I had something, something to add to the topic. But I'm such a boring, basic coffee drinker when I drink it that it would be embarrassing to even say what I drink.
Listen, this is a judgment-free zone where that's concerned. It's like music, everybody's got their own.
I'm judging myself.
You hold yourself to high standards. No, it's
I do.
Whenever we come through Troy, I'll be sure to take you to, I know, a great spot in Troy to go to. So we'll go and I'll get you something.
Well, which place?
Alias.
I'm probably. Oh no, I don't. Where's that at in Troy? There's so much new shit in Troy. I couldn't even tell you where half of it is and what it is.
So do you know?
I feel like
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you know Ryan?
Cool, go ahead.
Ryan, who plays in Geigen, and he fills with a Final Resting Place and stuff.
I sure do. Hell yeah! Shout out Ryan.
Shout out Ryan. We went to the Alias in Albany, but when he did his episode, he told me that he was at the one in Troy. So I don't know where it is, but the one in Albany is pretty good too.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much new stuff popping up all the time. It's tough to keep track, but that's good though. I guess that's a good thing, right?
I guess so. I mean, as long as it's not like making everything super fucking expensive everywhere.
Oh man, that's already happened, I'm sure. It's crazy when you hear about the expensive kind of like places to eat and places to go drink and kind of like stick your pinky out kind of deal, and they say it's in Troy. I almost can't believe them because there was nothing ever like that as long as I can remember in the city of Troy. And if it was, I couldn't tell you where it was.
So, because
now it's a whole different. No. Now it's just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But everywhere is different these days. So.
Well, I mean,
I guess it's to be expected.
Like my dad lives in Akron, and he's lived there for like 5 years or so, and even in the 5 years that he's lived in Akron, I've visited him quite a few times, and I've seen that city change a lot. Which it used to be kind of like a pretty like rundown neighborhood outside of Cleveland. And now it's like the affordable place to move to. So I guess Troy is kind of like that, like people running from New York City coming to an affordable place.
Yeah, it's definitely, I no longer live there, but most of my family is still there. So I'm there all the time and almost all my friends are there. So, when I do get there, it's cool to see how it's changed, but it's also a bummer to see how it's changed. But it's, I feel like change is for the better, and hopefully that's the case in that situation.
I hope so. Just means you have more variety.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you know, you always have the memories, but it can't always stay. Nothing ever stays the same, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's
And when you
true.
get old, I guess you realize that a little more, especially going to the place where you grew up and you love, and you see how nothing is there that you can remember from when you were a kid. Um, and that goes for any city that anybody probably grew up in. You always have memories. When people talk about how it is now, you're like, what? That's corny. This is how it used to be. That's no good. And then you just sound like a crazy old man, and you just shut up after a while.
That happened to me in December. I visited my family back in Savannah, and
Yeah,
I sat down with a couple of guys that like were in the scene with me when I was
yeah.
like out of high school into college, and like it sounded like three old men sitting around like reminiscing, which I
Yeah.
mean we're all like in our late 20s, early 30s, and it was just funny to hear like, oh no, that place doesn't exist anymore. Like, oh, this place changed into
Yeah.
like a bougie, like tourist spot. The city
Yeah.
tore this down. I'm like, man, this place is fucked.
Yeah. Look, Troy is still, I mean, it seems to me like there's been so much change, and they took a lot of areas that weren't the greatest, and it tried to make them nicer. And I just, once you have a memory of a place and how it used to be, it's so hard to see it change or hear about something not being there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
that's all I got.
to brighten the mood, I've heard that
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
are a bit of a record collector.
Yeah, I've been collecting my whole life since I was a kid. Um, one of the main reasons I started a label is because when I was a kid, I was just all I was about was records. I wanted records for my birthday, for any holiday you would get a present for. Give me records. And when I started working as like a young teenager, every paycheck there was a record store in Troy called Music Shack, and I would take the bus down to Music Shack, and I would spend every penny I made doing. I don't even remember what I did, but on records. And yeah, and I feel like that's why later on in life, when I went to do a record label, that was a huge reason. 'Cause I loved everything about them. I loved holding them. I loved looking at them. Just reading the cover back and forth. But over the years, I never got rid of anything. I have every record I've ever bought ever since I was a little kid, and I have a pretty big collection. I've only sold a couple things here and there, but for the most part, I still have everything, which is crazy. From like my old Kiss records from the '70s to like you know stuff that's come out yesterday. uh, yeah,
How many
yeah, I
would you
do.
say
I
that you
love it.
have?
I don't even know. I have a big walk-in closet, and you just walk in, and it's big plastic bins just full of records. Unfortunately, don't have a place to like put it all out. But when I just buy something new, I just open the closet and I put it in there, and then I close. I don't even listen to it, which sucks. But someday, we'll have a room. We got a lot of kids, and we got, I've got a decent sized house, but I don't have my own spot where I can spread out
Mm-hmm.
and set up a stereo and do all that. But that's my retirement dream, to have a place where I can just sit and listen to music. Hopefully someday.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had like a nice turntable set up with some,
I mean, I have all that stuff, but it's all packed away.
damn.
Yeah, when the kids were growing up, there's just no room to have it. So just put it away. You can still, thank God, you can still listen to music. I like to just pull out the records now and and look at them. You know what I mean? A few of my kids are into hardcore, so I like to pull them out and play like Cool Dad. Like, you don't got this. No, I know you don't got this. Yeah.
You don't have this original Killing Time press, huh?
You don't have the Warzone 7-inch on green vinyl.
Shut the fuck up. That's crazy.
And they're like, Dad, no, I'm 20 years old. Of course I don't have it.
Who's Warzone? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Who's Warzone? First show I ever saw. was Warzone and Uniform Choice.
Oh man.
In August of '87. It was the first show I ever went to. Speaking of Warzone.
How old were you?
Well, I was 17.
Oh man.
So back in the day, to how I got to that show, I guess we could start there. I went to grade school with this guy, Dan Matusi. And when we graduated from grade school or whatever you do, we both went to different high schools in Troy. And so like the following summer, I remember him calling me being like, hey, I started playing, because we both started playing guitar when we were in like, 6th or 7th grade. And we'd call up, look what I learned how to play, like over the phone, being mad corny. And then one day he was like, I joined a band with these guys in North Troy. You probably don't know them, but they go to shows. I've been going to hardcore shows, and I've been like, oh man, that's crazy. He's like, come to practice. So I picked him up, and we went to the practice, and it was like up in the 3rd floor of this attic, and it was like a drop down like ladder out of the attic, and they were like pushing like Marshall cabs up into this attic, and it was crazy. So we get up into this attic, and it was like my whole world changed. Like I met the people that I was like super tight with for like the rest of my life. That band he was in was a band called Cranial Abuse, who went later on to be called Stigmata. Mm-hmm. And it was probably a couple of years into that band, but that's when I met Mike and Bob and all those guys that day. And so long before I was ever in Stigmata, we all hung out for years prior to that. And that's how I went to that first show, because Cranial Abuse was on that Warzone and Uniform Choice show. So that's kind of how the little avenue shifted and brought me to there.
And that was in Troy?
No, that show was in Albany. At that time, almost all the shows were in Albany, and there weren't, if not at that time, that was like 87. There was, as far as I knew, there was no shows in Troy. There was a place called Studio K, but that came a little later, mm-hmm. which that place was crazy cool. So it was like somebody's house, and the entrance to the house was, the way you got into the show was from a parking garage. So at like 11 o'clock at night, you show up and you see all these people in this parking garage, and there was a door with a big letter K on it. And that place was called Studio K, and they put shows on in the basement. And so at like 11 o'clock, the guy would open the door, and there'd be like Troy bands would play there. One of the first Troycore bands I saw there, Dead End, played there. But that was, as far as like shows in Troy, there really weren't any, and they were all pretty much in Albany. So to get a Troy band to go play Albany was awesome, because the whole city of Troy went to Albany if a Troy band played. And it wasn't always like, Albany and Troy wasn't like it is now, like, hey, we're friends. Back then, it really wasn't. The Troy kids and the Albany kids really didn't get along. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like the greasers and the socias, you know what I mean? The Albany kids were into different stuff, and the Troy kids were more metal, mm-hmm. and just like on that side of the thing. So those two worlds would collide at times. Thank God it's not like that anymore, because after time, everybody became friends. Once you realize you got more similarities than you do differences, and you become friends after a while. Like Steve Reddy from Equal Vision and all the Wolfpack guys and all the Troy guys, everybody really came together, and that's when the scene really became really awesome back then.
So going from, because I was going to ask if that band you were going to see jam was Cranial Abuse.
Yeah.
Like from that time, when do you think that the like Upstate, which I guess would have been that Albany and surrounding area, when was that starting to like get really hot with like Section 8 and all that? Was that around the same time that Stigmata was starting?
So Stigmata, I didn't join Stigmata until 97. So Stigmata, mm-hmm. was a band. They went from the name Cranial Abuse to Stigmata in 1989. When the music started to change a lot, and it became more of like a a more serious band and less of like a hard. Now I want to say hardcore because there was definitely hardcore, but it was definitely more on the metal side of things than it was like Cranial Abuse was more hardcore and more like, I don't want to say skate rock, but almost skate core kind of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it took a big direction change. So that came with the name change as well. But that was 89. So there still wasn't shows, the big scene explosion, like the QE2 explosion, that hadn't happened yet, but it was coming. It was like 90, 91. And this promoter, Ted Etal, who still does shows to this day and owns like, owns a big club in Albany, still puts on shows and really still awesome. But he took the reins over and started doing shows at the QE2 because there was no place to have shows. All the clubs, all like the VFWs and stuff, you know, were just getting messed up and no one was letting shows happen anywhere. And apparently Ted had an in. The QE2 was real like a goth club for a long time and like a kind of punk goth. I'll be the first to tell you I didn't hang out there until they started doing hardcore shows there, which was cool. But I fought tooth and nail for the hardcore shows. I did not want them to go to clubs, man, because hardcore belonged in the fucking VFW hall. It belonged in a basement. It belonged in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And when I heard Ted was starting to go to the club, you're going to do shows in the club, wanted to book clubs, I fucking hated it. And it got back to Ted that I hated it. And one night at my apartment, Ted calls my house. And he's like, buddy, you know, we don't even know each other. Why is this beef? And it's like, fuck the out of fucking club, hardcore clubs, fuck you, da 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 da. And at the end of the night, we became best friends. And I could see why he wanted to do it. And he put on like a bunch of cool shit that I was involved with too at the time. But, you know, change, you always, you know, especially when it comes to something like hardcore that you love, you never want to see somebody else come in and try to change it.
Right.
At least for me back then. I'm sure that attitude has changed with a million people. But that's when the QE2 shows started happening and the Albany scene fucking humongous. Ted started putting out records, putting on all the shows, you know, again, like bands that were coming, doing weekends or even on tour, coming through the Biohazards and the Life of Agonies and the Typo Negatives and that whole era. And then Albany had them all too. We had Section 8 and Cutthroat and you know, Troy band Stigmata and Withstand. It was, and One King Down. It was like, that's around the time when it was really like people started to take notice more than just like, yeah, Albany's a good hardcore town, to like, you got to play Albany, you know?
I know, like, because I'm not from the area, I've just heard some of my older head friends talking about how like, the upstate scene in Montreal had so much like kind of close knitness in that like late 90s, early 2000s time, where there was a lot of people that would come up or go down to shows in Albany and stuff like that. So is there any bands that you remember from like Montreal that from that time?
You know, I don't remember so much bands coming, but I remember like friends coming down, like Mike, who did Shed Your Skin. Is that what it's called? Right?
Yeah. Is it Shed My Skin or something like that? Yeah.
Shed My Skin. I'm sorry. Shed My Skin. Yeah. So Mike would come down and he would take pictures. He was at all the shows. Any show, any Troy show, he was there. I remember Rod, a photographer named Rod, would come down. Mm-hmm. And he would take tons of pictures all the time. But as far as bands, not so much. But I do remember tons of people from like Rochester and Buffalo always coming to Albany and Troy for shows. You know, I'm terrible with names and like exactly where everybody comes from, but yeah, not so much bands from Montreal. But definitely a lot of people we became friends with would come down and hang out a lot. That's for sure.
I've just heard so much like, I mean, I guess it's mostly from Mike, so that makes sense, but so many stories.
He's a super fan.
Dude, he is the biggest fan of anything from that area.
Yeah. He is definitely a big cheerleader for sure.
But yeah, I mean, even going through his catalog of talking to bands, whether it was like Heavy Montreal or even some of the like shows where he would sit down with people backstage for hardtimes.ca or Shed My Skin. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely had his thumb on the pulse of what hardcore had going on at that time. But he definitely had his finger on the pulse of what we were all doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for bands in the Troy area and stuff, big local scene, you had a big local following, but to hear someone else from somewhere else was into what you were doing was always like a freak out. You're like, yo, some guy from Canada likes our music. And nowadays it's like, now hardcore is just like one huge scene, but back in like the late 80s, you'd be freaked out if you heard anybody outside of like the 518 even giving a shit about what you were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I can even remember like the MySpace kind of like pre-Facebook days, which I'm sure to a lot of people even listening, they don't even remember MySpace. But like, like I remember hearing about shows like in other cities and other scenes and them being like, oh, dude, that city's so violent. Or like, you know, maybe there's like, this is happening in that scene. There's this band. But like, you know, most of the shows were local, even when I was still going, because our city was pretty small and not close to anything else. So I definitely know about like, I can't believe they know about our band and they don't even live in fucking Troy.
I know, man. To even think that it's like 2025 and you even hear anybody talk about any bands from the Troy area from years ago still fucks me up. I mean, I'm 55 years old and they're talking about songs that were written when we were all like starting high school. You know what I mean? that bands today are covering or talking about, or, you know, whatever. That just seems crazy, you know?
Yeah, but I mean,
like
that's
a song you can.
No, go ahead.
A song you can remember being written, and being like, yeah, that's cool. And like you play a show in the driveway to like 15 of your friends, and they're killing each other. And now it's a song that, you know, gets 400,000 plays on Spotify, which is, you know, it's crazy, you know. And there's really like a whole bunch of people that we had to thank, because there's definitely people out there flying the 518 and the Troy flag, and they have for years, even when nobody did. Nobody gave a shit. There's tons of people that rode for us, like, you know, the Young Brothers and Reaper Records and the TUI guys, and you know, when no one said a peep, those guys were saying, "Yo, everybody listen." When the band was pretty much over, and you know, and no one, and we weren't even thinking about playing shows, those guys were flying the flag, and they're a big reason. I feel like they're a big reason that anybody still talks about it today. You know, we got a lot to be thankful for in that aspect. You know, for such a small scene like the Troy scene was back then, to still be talked about now is like still unbelievable to the people who are involved in it, you know?
Well, I feel like so much influence like outside, like came from Troy that like people looked at, even if it didn't look like within itself, it didn't look as big, but like the waves were made. Because look at how many like music labels, underground labels, are from that area, even, because Unbeaten is one.
Yeah.
You've got Equal Visions from the area. You've got oh my god, what's the label that the heavy label? Closed Casket.
Closed Casket is from here.
Yeah.
There's Albany, the Albany 518 area, I do believe, has more record labels than bands.
That does not surprise me, but it's
and you know, every one of those labels is a little different, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's got its own flavor.
Nobody's really doing the same thing, and that's how it all can coincide with each other. Like Steve at Equal Vision and Loudon at, you know, those guys are, you know, they're huge, like still huge supporters of me. Like we don't have to talk each day to still know that we both, or we all still back what each other does. And even though we might not like what each other we're putting out, we admire what each other's doing and still doing it to this day. Like EVR's been around for, it seems like forever, you know? Yeah. And Close Casket as well. You know, I remember when Loudon put out the first record, you know, came into work and gave me that first record and was so pumped. And to see what he's done with that label is fucking amazing. One of the greatest, if not the greatest label out there right now, you know? And EVR, you know, EVR is I'm under the EVR umbrella with Unbeaten. So, you know, I feel like those people are family to me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and everybody helps each other. There's no backstabbing and then there's no beefing. And it's just so great that these big labels, I don't mean big, not those guys are big. I'm not big, but it's great that all these labels can coincide within like literally like 30 miles of each other and not sound the same, you know? Mm-hmm.
And have so much influence on the American and from the global hardcore scene. Like it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get, you know, and I don't really look at it that way because, you know, if you live here, you don't notice that, but I guess you're right. You know, I mean, I don't know. So much cool shit has come from this area, you know, and I feel like through the years, I don't feel like it's gotten the love and the respect and the flowers that it deserves. People talk about it, but, you know, everybody's like, oh, Smaldeny, or, you know, you're a Troylet and like all this, you know, all this kind of shit.
Crazy.
That is crazy. Because that'll get you smacked the fuck up around here. You call somebody a Troylet. You know what I mean? But
that's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, people make shirts that say Troylet and stickers, all that. They're like, it's like, yo, you want to be called a Troylet? Because I know some people that will fucking fuck you up. You call them a Troylet.
Damn.
But yeah, no, but yeah, you know, I don't know. It's a great area to be in. I'm thankful that I grew up here. I'm thankful for the people in my life that allow me to put out records, and I'm thankful for the Stigmata guys who I grew up with, who one day said, yo, you want to be in the band? And we went all over the world and we did a bunch of cool shit. And, you know, who the fuck ever thought you would do that? When you're buying that first piece of shit guitar when you're 13 years old, thinking that one day you might be on a plane going somewhere fucking far away where people are going to sing your lyrics, or, you know, jump off a fucking stage to something you wrote in your bedroom. Will never feel real, you know?
Yeah. So how did you joining Stigmata happen?
So like I said, I grew up, like me and Jay went to grade school together. Mm-hmm. Dan from Cranial Abuse. We went to school together. So when he joined Cranial Abuse is really when I met all those guys from North Troy. Mike Maney was in Cranial Abuse, who's in Stigmata.
Right.
Bob was in Cranial Abuse, who's in Stigmata. The original drummer in Cranial Abuse, Grizz, he was in Stigmata. So it was like, oh, I met all these guys, and then we all went to shows together. We all hung out, swimming in each other's pools, like everything, our whole lives, right? And then as you get older, you don't see each other like all the time. You know, people start getting married, start having kids. And then one night, I lived in the city for like a hot minute, and I came back when I moved back up to Albany. I went to the QE2 one night. I don't even remember what was going on there. I think there was a show, but there was like nobody there, so I don't know what it was. But Bob and Sunks were there at the show. It was like, holy shit, I haven't seen you in fucking years, whatever. This was right before the Redemption demo came out. It might have been recorded yet, I'm not exactly sure, but talking, and then we all like, oh, here's my number, keep in touch. And so a couple of days go by, or a week goes by, and Sunks hit me up, and he goes, yo, Dan, the original bass player in Cranial Abuse and Stigmata. He's like, Dan's out of the band. and we got this going on, this going on, this going on, a bunch of stuff. And we're trying to figure out who to get. And Jay was just like, yo, what about Buddy? We just saw Buddy. And then everybody was like, yep. And Buddy's the dude. Let's, you know, we had a rehearsed or something. I think we went somewhere and I learned a couple songs. I mean, I already knew them because I fucking hoped someday that they'd fucking ask me to be in that band. You know what I mean? So I just played dumb. Like I fucking learned them and we did it. And then everybody was drinking and hanging out. And then it was like, so wait, am I in the band? And they were like, yeah, you're the fucking band. Blah, 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 blah. And so that's really how it was like that easy. It was like that simple, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really it. I mean, the band played a lot. We did a cool tour with Blood for Blood, which was like a full US. We played tons of weekends and did cool stuff, you know, and I think the band broke up like 15,000 times, and then a year would go by and we'd play another show. And, you know, it's almost like it's never broken up, but who knows? Who knows now? Who knows now? You know what I mean? There's no evidence, but, you know, there's no talk of playing or anything like that. So if it ended the way it ended, it was hella fun while it lasted, and it was a great experience, you know?
Yo, I mean, Stigmata plays the Bruiserweight LP release in a year or something. You know what I'm saying? Montreal show.
Dude, that'd be nuts. But I will say, I wouldn't hold your breath.
No. It would just it'd be that long shot. Like, what if they said yes? You know?
No, I hear you. But you know what it is too, though. I feel like sometimes it's good for good stuff just to be done. You know what I mean? And just to be like, man, that was really fucking good.
Yeah.
And not, you know, it's like we've come back and done it a million times. And I was always at the forefront of that, like, yo, come on, everybody, let's do it. And now I kind of see like, man, if it was good, people will say it was good. You know, hardcore is a youth movement, man. And I'm just happy to fucking do what we did, and you know, and if it never happened again, I think I might finally be okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, never say never, I guess, but who fucking knows?
That's why you have the label now. You just vicariously, you know, live through the bands that you put out.
Yeah. Well, that was a huge part of why I started doing the label. Was it just, you know, I felt like hardcore was a youth movement, and no one wants to see my fucking old ass up there playing fucking the same songs from a million years ago. You know what I mean?
1990.
So being able to, even earlier, dude, even songs earlier, like these people watching weren't even fucking born. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, and sometimes it's just cool to be like, man, that was cool. You know what I mean? And just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what pushed you to find, like, I know that you have a love of records and the collection and everything, but why start Unbeaten?
One day it happened. I was having a conversation with the owner of Equal Vision, and we were just like, you know, I don't even remember, cracking jokes back and forth and stuff. And I said something to the effect of, you let me put out like 2 records. You let me put out a record. You let me put out 2 records. And if it doesn't do good, then I'll quit. Just joking around. He's like, you want to do a record label? You can do a record label. Let's see how it goes. And I was like, holy shit, are you serious? And he was like, yeah. So we had a little meeting and stuff. And that was 11 years ago. And it's still going, thank God. If it wasn't for Equal Vision, it probably wouldn't be. Because they were, you know, they're incredible at what they do, and everything they've taught me, and everything, you know, they pretty much held my hand for the longest time and were so patient and showed me just showed me a good way to do shit in a way that seems to work for me. And I'll always be grateful for that. You know, I worked for Equal Vision and merch now, et cetera, for 22 years. I no longer work there anymore. I haven't worked there in like 5 years, but still have the label there. I still have, a million of friendships, that I've had since I was a kid. Some of those guys that work there I've known since those days of 16, 17 in North Troy, going to watch band practice. So, there's a lot of history there. And like I said, I couldn't have done this or do this without them. So they will always be a big part of my life.
And what was that first record that you put out? It wasn't the Boundaries record. It was it Chamber?
No, the first record we did in 2014 was this band from Illinois called Lowered.
Lowered AD.
Yeah, they used to be called Crucifer before that, and then they changed their name. And it was funny. I was just looking at bands and stuff, and one night I was talking to Brian from Zavalva on the phone, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just hanging out with this band that's recording at Taylor's. They're called Crucifer." He said, "You should check them out for your label. They're really fucking awesome and really good." So I hit up Taylor, just fucking around, going like, "Yo, you ever heard of this band Crucifer?" And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, man. They just recorded here. What the hell's going on?" And I was like, No. Brian told me. He said, I should check it out. And then he sent it to me. And then that was the first thing we did. That was the first record. The second thing we did was a comp. It was a covers comp of hardcore bands doing metal stuff. It was like Stigmata, King Nine, Downpresser, Disgrace, Born Low, Lowered was on there.
Damn.
And it was all hardcore bands doing just doing metal stuff like Slayer and Pantera cover, just whatever they picked. It was like just each band picked 2 songs and we'll put out. It was a double LP. It was fucking awesome. But yeah, those are the first 2 things we did. 2014. Last year was the 10-year anniversary, and then obviously this is 11th. We're doing like a 10th anniversary / 11 year because we missed last year show this year at the end of August in Albany. So there'll be a flyer and there'll be stuff coming up for that real soon. So,
are you at liberty to talk about it at all, or just are you keeping it under wraps?
The show?
Yeah,
it's under wraps. Soon though, within like the next week or so, it'll be announced and there'll be the ticket and the flyer and the ticket info and everything. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be in Albany though. It's in Albany on August 30th, as you know.
As I know, yeah. I have host privilege, special privileges.
Sure do. But you haven't even heard all of it yet, so.
No, all I know is that we got asked to play.
Yeah. It'll be good, man. I can't wait.
I'm very stoked.
Hell yeah.
Because I didn't want to leak the whole, like, we'll be in the Troy area in August yet.
But, no. Definitely will be in the Troy area.
Yeah. So I'm very excited because the guys and I have really been wanting to play like the Albany, Troy area and come hang out. And like we have friends there now.
That'll be fun.
We've played Western Mass and stuff. And super stoked.
That's super close to us, Western Mass. A lot of people come here and we go there.
Yeah, we played the Hoff, which is like an hour away.
Yeah, it's not far, for sure. Yes, sir, Bobby.
I love that area because everything's like an hour to 2 hours away from each other, and if you play, you can play like every city between Albany and Boston and have a crowd. You know what I mean? Yeah,
you could go. On any weekend, you could go to the Anthrax in Connecticut to a show, or you could go to the city to a show, and everything's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours away. It's all a day trip, That's what made going to shows so awesome when you were younger, because you had all these other places that were super close by that were, pretty much local because they weren't that far away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Fans, if there was an Albany show, kids from Western Mass came. Kids from the city came. Anywhere within like 2 or 3 hours, everybody would show up.
I find that. Like in the Toronto area, they kind of have that, but now it's even where people don't want to make the trip. Like even if it's about an hour or so, they're like, no, like I'm not. It's not close enough to me. I'm like, bro, it's a 45-minute drive. Like
I know, right? That's funny. And even in like, you know, in the Hudson Valley, they have shows in Poughkeepsie and the Kingston area, and that's only about an hour and change from Albany, Troy too. So yeah, it's all over, and it's super close, which is super cool.
Yeah, like I've heard of bands having members between Albany and Hudson Valley, and I'm like, you can't just start a band in Albany, like
I know, right?
Or in Hudson Valley,
that's
and
funny.
It's like, no, we're just friends, so we want to play in a band. I'm like, all right, that's fine, that's cool.
Yeah, it's close enough where you could do that, you know. I live in Columbia County, which is like southeast of Albany, Troy area, and I work in Kingston, so I work like an hour south of where I live. So I work about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes away from Albany and Troy.
Oh man!
But there, you know, there's a whole nother, that's a whole nother thing. Like Kingston is close, to where I live. Everything is so close. In hardcore terminology, you know what I mean? Everything is, there's no, you can go to Western Mass. Even back in the 80s and 90s, you could go in Troy one weekend, you'd see Dying Breed and Stigmata. You drive an hour to Western Mass and see Death Threat and 100 Demons. And then the next day you would drive to fucking, wherever, another 2 hours and see, AF, and Sick of It All in the City,
Well, but I appreciate your time. I know that you're a busy guy.
I appreciate you giving me this platform to talk. I appreciate it.
Very stoked about us getting our vinyl soon as well.
Yeah, man.
I can't wait.
Should be very soon.
I can't wait to hold it in my hand. We're gonna have to. Before we go, what's your favorite city for Beans and Breakdowns?
Fucking Troy, man.
Damn right.
Hell yeah.
We'll see what it's about in August.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will, my friend.
Well, we'll talk soon.
All right, man.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Buddy for hanging out with me on the podcast. So great to be able to talk to him. Check out all of the bands that he's got on Unbeaten Records. You can find links to the web store in the description of this episode. And if you haven't checked out Stigmata before, that's a huge mistake. You got to go check out Stigmata. They have some awesome records. The demo from 1990 is one of the coolest upstate hardcore records of all time. So be sure to check that out. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.